To the one who woke up at 3:04 again, not from a noise, not from a dream that you can remember. Your eyes just open and your heart was already going like something just happened. And nothing had. You looked at the clock. Everybody looks at the clock. And then you did the math because everybody does the math. 4 hours and 20 minutes. If I fall asleep right now, and then your brain does the most helpful thing, it starts unleashing thoughts, memories, feelings, a to-do list at the best possible time. Well, here's what I want you to know before we go anywhere else with this. You are not the only one awake at this time right now. More than a third of adults wake up at least 3 nights a week. Almost a quarter wake up every single night. And when researchers ask how long it had been going on, more than 9 in 10 said longer than 6 months. So this is not a small, strange thing happening to you. It's the majority being lived by a lot of people who each think they are the only ones. This is Unpacked. I'm Andrew Azevedo, and today we're going to be talking about 3 in the morning, why it happens, why it keeps happening long after, even though there are no reasons or the reasons for it are gone, and what you can actually do tonight. If you listen to the last one, you know what happens when there's alcohol in your system. The 5 o'clock drink, the rebound, the bill coming due at 2 or 3 in the morning. Well, this one is about the other nights. The ones where you did everything right. Nothing is in your system. You have a reasonable bedtime, no reason at all, and you're still awake at 3. Now, one housekeeping note before we continue. Other than just saying it, I want you to understand that I mean this. This is an educational podcast. It is not medical advice. It is not therapy. And I am not diagnosing anybody. Hypnotherapy is a vocational and avocational self-improvement. Sleep, stress, focus, habits. If something in your life needs a doctor, it needs a doctor. And I'll say so again later when we get to the part where that matters. So don't listen to the last section of this episode while you're driving. I'll tell you before it starts. Calm Ops Hypnosis, LLC, is not affiliated with, endorsed by, or sponsored by the U.S. Navy or the Department of Defense. All right, now that we got that out of the way, let's get into it. Let's start with the thing almost nobody tells you, because it reframes the whole experience. Sleep is built in 2 halves that do completely different jobs. The first half is heavy. It's dense with what's called a slow wave of sleep. And that deep physical repair work, that's kind of what's happening. That's the part that's hard to wake somebody out of. And that's the part where if the phone rings, you might genuinely not hear it. Then after about 3 or 4 hours, it changes. Now the second half tilts towards the dreaming and the lighter stages. Less repair, more processing. So sorting through your day, filing things away, and is much easier to interrupt. So by 3 in the morning, you are physiologically closer to being awake than you were at 1 in the morning. Not because something went wrong, but because that's the design. Here's the way I want you to hold that concept. When you first fall asleep, you're deep, like at the bottom of a swimming pool. Somebody could say your name and you would not hear a thing. But later on, you start floating up to the top, still asleep, but now you're just under the top, like close to the top level. So at 3 in the morning, somebody says your name, and this time you hear it. Your eyes open, and you think, wow, what was that? Something must have happened, but nothing happened. They said it exactly the same way. They said it 3 hours ago. You were just close enough to hear it this time. And it's the same with whatever is on your mind. It's there all evening. It was there while you were asleep. It didn't get bigger at 3 in the morning. You just came up near enough to be able to hear it. And there's a second thing stacking in the same window. Your core body temperature usually bottoms out somewhere between 2 and 4 in the morning. Its lowest point of the entire 24-hour period. So the architecture is thinning and the thermostat is at the floor in the same stretch of the night. So one thing I want you to try this week, when you wake, notice the time and write it down. Just the number, like on a pad on your phone. Do that for a week before you decide it's random. But I think you'll find, and most people find, that it isn't random at all. Now, let me correct something you probably have read on the internet because it's everywhere. And it's wrong in the way that it makes people feel like they're broken. You'll be told cortisol spikes at 3 in the morning is your problem. Cortisol rising in small amounts is supposed to happen. It starts climbing in the early hour and peaks shortly after you get up. It is the thing that gets you out of bed at all. A body that didn't do that couldn't start its day. And it's a gradual climb, not a spike. So the rise isn't the fault. What changes is what the rise gets interpreted as. When a system has been running hot for long enough, and I mean months to years, not to be confused for a bad week, that ordinary overnight climb stops registering as a usual morning and eventually starts registering as something is off in your body. Same hormone, same schedule, different reading. And this is where I want to give you the image that I think does the most work in this whole entire episode. It's an alarm that can't tell the time. Now, most people would tell you it's a false alarm, that nothing's on fire, you're overreacting, it's just anxiety, calm down. I'm not going to tell you that because my experience, it isn't true. Usually the thing that's keeping you awake is worth thinking about. It's a real problem, something you're responsible for, something with an outcome that matters that isn't fully in your hands. I'll give you my experience. There was a stretch of time where I was responsible for somebody's medical situation, and I did everything I knew how to do. And it wasn't presenting the way the textbook said it would present as. We got them where they needed to go, and it turned out I had been right all along. And for weeks afterwards, I laid awake at night going back through it. Did I miss something? Was there something I overlooked? The alarm in my brain wasn't wrong that it mattered, because it mattered enormously. It was brought up as the timing being wrong. And when there was nothing that I can do, like actually do about it, because at 3 in the morning, you cannot call anyone. You can't look anything up that will help. You can't fix it, resolve it, apologize for it, or find out if it turned out okay. There's no action. And especially at 3 in the morning, there's no available action for you. None. And your nervous system is standing there ringing a bell because it doesn't have a clock. And that's the whole thing. The alarm is doing its job. It just can't tell what time it is. And notice what list that you make in your body Nobody lies awake about a problem they can solve. You don't wake up at 3 about an email you can send. It's always the unresolved things, the outcome that matters, that isn't within your control. For me, it's almost always performance, that I'll get something wrong, that I won't do it well enough, and it will cost me something I worked very hard for. And yours will be different, but I bet the shape is the same thing. Now, one thing to notice when you wake at 3, before any thought arrives in like the first couple of seconds, what is your body already doing? Your heart, your chest, your jaw. Most people find that the body is up before the thought is. And that's the order it actually happens in. So, this is the part that nobody tells you. And it's the reason people end up thinking there's something wrong with them. Here's the question I keep coming back to. If the thing keeping you awake is stress or the pain or whatever happened, then surely if you fix that, the sleep comes back pretty much on its own, right? Now, take away the cause, you take away the problem. It's a reasonable idea and it's been tested, and sadly, it doesn't hold. There's research where people were given 2 strongest available treatments for serious trauma. Their daytime symptoms improved substantially, and not one person's sleep came back to normal. Not some of them, none. The daytime got better, but the nights didn't. So the sleep is not simply a symptom of the other thing, it becomes its own thing. And once you understand why, you stop blaming yourself. So stay with me for this. Think about spraining your ankle. You sprain it and it hurts. So you start walking around with the pain. You put your weight on the other side. You take the stairs differently. And that's not weakness. It's intelligent, and it's the intelligent thing to do. And your body does it automatically without asking you. Then eventually your ankle heals. But you're still walking wrong. Nobody told you to stop. The limp got learned. And now the limp is what's wrecking your hip. And your hip has nothing to do with your ankle. The original injury is completely gone, and the compensation is still running. And the compensation has become now the problem. Well, sleep does exactly this. Something happens, a stressful year, a loss, pain, a stretch of work you couldn't put down, and your sleep breaks. And you do the sensible thing. You start protecting it. You go to bed earlier to get more out of it. You lie there longer, you cut things out of your everyday life or evening. And what happens is you're trying to take it as seriously as you can because it's important to you. Every one of those is a form of a limp, and each one quietly makes it worse. Going to bed earlier when you're not tired, that means lying awake longer. And lying awake in bed night after night teaches your body something. It teaches your body that the bed is where you stay alert. And here's how I know you'll believe me, because you probably already do. You probably heard that you shouldn't meditate while lying in bed because you'll just fall asleep. And that's true. Isn't it that everybody who's tried it knows that it's true? Nobody argues with it. And why is it true? Because your body has learned over thousands of nights that the specific place means sleep. It doesn't decide it, it just goes with it. It does it. Okay, so if your body can learn that, and specifically learns that bed equals sleep, then what do you think it's been learning for the last 6 months? Same mechanism, same body, running the other direction. And that's the part that matters. At some point, the thing that started this stops being the thing that's keeping it going. The stressor can be completely resolved, and the years over the situation is now fixed and you're fine. But the sleep problem carries on under its own power. If you've been lying there wondering why you still can't sleep when your life is objectively okay now, and I think that's your answer. It isn't that you're ungrateful or that there's some hidden thing wrong with you. It's a limp. And a limp is the thing that you can retrain. There's one more piece, and it explains why the same thought is manageable at noon and unbearable at 3. Two things are happening. When you wake up at 3 in the morning, not all of you wakes up at once. The part that worries wakes up first. It's already up before your eyes are even open. The part that says, hang on, it's actually not that bad, that part is slow. That part is still asleep. So for a while, you've got the worry and nobody there to argue with it. That's why the same thing feels enormous at 3 and completely manageable at breakfast. Nothing changed about the problem overnight. The part that usually you keep things in proportion just hadn't turned up yet. Your thoughts aren't smarter at 3 in the morning. They're just less supervised. Which means the 3 in the morning version of a problem is not the true version of it. It's the version with the adult out of the room. So here's the other half of it. All day, your brain has 100 things pulling at it. Work, traffic, the conversation you're half in, the ache in your back. It can't listen to all of this. So it turns most of that volume down. And that's not a flaw. You just never get through a Tuesday otherwise. But at 3 in the morning, all of that is gone. There's nothing to turn down. So whatever's left gets all of you. That's why pain is worse at night. And the researchers are blunt about it. The pain didn't get worse. There's just nothing else left to drown it out. And you already know this one. There's a tap dripping somewhere in your house. It's been dripping all day and you haven't heard it once. But at 2 in the morning, it's the loudest thing in the building. Nothing changed about the tap. Everything else just got quiet. Now, I'm going to nerd out for just a second, and this isn't your thing necessarily. It's more me, but I hope you can just write it out for a little bit. But some of you are going to know exactly what it means when I talk about this. And it's about Cerebro. And in the X-Men, there's a machine called Cerebro. Professor X goes into this big, sealed, empty room, puts on a helmet, and suddenly he can hear every mind on the planet. And the thing about Cerebro is that it doesn't create anything, it just amplifies what's already out there. And there's no volume knob. He doesn't get to hear one mind at a comfortable level. He gets all of it at full strength. And in that moment, it isn't a gift. It's overwhelming, and it takes great skill to control. That's your bedroom at 3 in the morning. The lights are off, the world's shut down, and nothing's coming in. But everything already in your head comes back at 1,000 times of the volume with no way to turn it down. You don't get to think about the thing a normal amount. That's not a character flaw. That's just what happens when a quiet room gets really loud, specifically in your mind. And that's also why the bed can carry things that have nothing to do with sleep. If you're in pain, 3 in the morning is when there's nothing to distract you from it. If you had an argument with your partner and you didn't get to resolve it, you're now lying 18 inches away from them in the dark, in the place you're supposed to be resting. The unresolved thing is physically in the bed with you. That's not your imagination. That's the room doing what a quiet room does. Now, I need to be straight with you about something. And I'd rather do it here in the middle than tack it on at the end like a fine print. For some people, this is more than a stress pattern. If you're waking up at 3 because of something specific that happened to you, something like trauma, that's a different conversation. And it belongs with a doctor or a licensed clinician and not with me. I'm not being coy about that specifically. I'm telling you where kind of my lane ends. And I'll tell you why I'm confident in saying that. The research I mentioned, where people got real treatment for serious trauma and their sleep didn't come back, cuts both ways. It means the sleep is worth working on in its own right. And it means if there's something bigger underneath, working on the sleep alone was never going to be enough. You might need both. That's not me passing you off. That's me telling you what the evidence actually says. Okay, so back to it. So let's talk about what to do. And I'm going to start by taking something away from you. Most of the sleep advice you have ever been given is a placebo arm of the study. I want to be precise about that because it sounds like a cheap shot and it isn't. Cool room, dark curtains, no caffeine after 2, no screens before bed. That's called sleep hygiene. And the clinical guidance is that sleep hygiene on its own has not been shown to work for chronic sleep problems. It's so reliably weak that when researchers want to test a real treatment, they use sleep hygiene as the control condition. It's the sugar pill that they compare the medicine against. That's like washing a car when the engine won't start. And nothing's wrong with the clean car, but it's not the repair. So here's what's actually part of the medicine. And the good news is that you can start tonight and it costs nothing. So let's do number 1 as the step, and that's stop doing the math. The clock is the first thing that turns being awake into a problem. So that calculation, 4 hours and 20 minutes if I fall asleep right now, is what recruits the alarm. So before the math, you're a person who's awake. After the math, you're a person who's failing. So turn the clock around. Put the phone across the room so you cannot do any arithmetic about a number you can't see. Now 2, give the body the signal instead of the argument. You cannot talk your nervous system down. You've tried. Everybody's tried. Laying there trying to explain to yourself that this is fine and has never once worked, because the part of you that's activated doesn't process arguments. It processes signals at that moment. So give it one really good signal, a long, slow breath out, longer going out than coming in. 4 or 5 of those, and that's it. And I want to be careful about what I'm claiming here, because this is where people get sold a lie and you are not trying to fall asleep. Trying to fall asleep is the thing that keeps you awake. You're trying to stop being on high alert. Those are 2 different jobs, and only one of them is available to you at 3 in the morning. Now 3, put that thought somewhere. Grab like a pad and a pen and put it by your bed, not your phone, because the phone is a door into everything else. And 1 line, no elaboration, no solving it, just the fact of it written down. The point isn't the note. The point is that the mind stops rehearsing something once it knows it's been recorded somewhere else. It's going to keep circling because it doesn't trust you to remember. And a piece of paper is enough to satisfy that. And one more, which is the one thing that people usually try to resist. If you've been awake for 20 minutes, then get up. leave the room, low light, no screen, something boring, and then go back when you start to feel heavy again. I know that's the opposite of what you would want to do, but remember that limp that we were talking about previously. Lying there fighting it is the exact behavior that teaches your body that the bed is where the fight happens. So getting up is how you stop teaching it that. That's the last one. And turning the clock away aren't hygiene, by the way. They're actual real ingredients to actual medicine that will work. So if you take nothing else from this episode, take at least those two things. So, where does what I do come into all this? Those tools that I taught you retrain where you sleep and what you do when you're awake. They're good, they work, and I just gave them to you for free because you should have them, whether or not you ever speak to me. What they don't do is the changing of the setting itself, the feeling of being on alert, the threshold that's been creeping down for years. You can retrain the bed and still be the person whose alarm goes off at a whisper. And that's the piece I work on. And the argument for is in one sentence. What's keeping this going is a learned response. And a learned response are what hypnotherapy work is for. You can't reason a threshold back up. People know perfectly, well, they're 3 a.m. Thoughts are definitely out of proportion. Knowing it has never once helped all three thoughts or like the things that are passing through you in that time frame in the morning. They just compile. So what changes a setting is repetition, delivered in a state where the system is actually receptive. And that's the whole modality in a single line. Now, let me tell you what the evidence says, and it's real weight because I'd rather undersell this than have you find out at, 3 a.m. that I've oversold it. There's a study where people were given hypnotic suggestion before a full night's sleep with their brain activity measured on an EEG. Not how did you sleep, but actually measured. The people who responded well to suggestion got about 13 extra minutes of the deep restorative sleep. So that was like half the night. Not a headline number, a real one. And alongside it, their nervous systems shifted out of that always on state, which to me is the more interesting finding because that's the mechanism rather than just the stopwatch. So, 3 honest caveats, and I'm giving you all 3. The first, that worked in people who responded well to suggestion, and that is not everybody. Some people are highly responsive, some aren't, and you don't really know until you try. Now, the second, there's a proper systematic review of hypnotherapy for sleep, and it found that it helps and said plainly that the quality of the studies is low and you shouldn't generalize too far from them. That's the review's own conclusion, not mine. This is a small evidence base. Anyone telling you otherwise is selling you something. And the third, I'm not fixing whatever started this. I'm working on what's keeping the alarm sensitive. Reducing, not curing. If somebody promised you they'll cure you of the sleep, then walk away. And on the question I get asked the most, does it last? Where anyone has followed people up, it's held reasonably well. But the follow-ups are small. And there's one finding in there that I think is the most useful thing in this whole entire thing, specifically this episode. The people who kept practicing at home held on to it. The ones who stopped, when the sessions stopped, they didn't hold on to any of the stuff as well, which makes complete sense when you think about the limp that I was talking about earlier. Practice is like a worn down shortcut across a field. Nobody built that. It's there because people just kept walking on it. The first time you walked on it, it was like still grass. Same the second time. It only turns into a path after you've done it a lot. And that's what practice between sessions is for. I can show you where to walk. I can't wear the path down for you. That's why this is a course of work with practice. In between is specific because that's where you do your own kind of like reinforcements and not one dramatic session where somebody fixes you and everything is solved. It's physical therapy, not surgery. Nobody does 3 reps and has a strong back. And if any of that sounds like your situation, there's a free 20-minute consult and the link's in the show notes. No pitch on it. You tell me what's going on. I tell you honestly whether I think I can help. And sometimes the answer is that you need to speak to someone else. But at least you'll hear it from me and it will be honest. Now, if you're driving, this is where you stop and come back later. So you know the one. Somewhere around 3. Not upset. Not panicking. Just awake, running the list. The thing you said. The thing you didn't say. The thing on Thursday. Nothing you can do about any of it at that hour. And you're doing it anyways. All right. We're going to do something different for the last couple of minutes. It's not sleep and it's not a trick. It takes about 2 minutes. You don't have to close your eyes or lie down or be anywhere in particular. If you're walking, you can keep walking. So let's start. Let the breath out, all the way out. Longer going out than coming in. And let the shoulders come down with the breath out. And again, out. And notice the weight of your head. It's heavier than you usually let it be. Let it be that heavy. Now, whatever the room is doing right now, or your environment, that's fine. It doesn't have to be quiet. Could hear traffic, a fan, somebody in the next room. Just simply let it be there. And let it be somebody else's business. And here's the thing I wanted to show you. Somewhere in you, there's a setting that's been turned up for a long time. It got turned up for a reason. It's been doing a job scanning, checking, staying ready. And it's been doing it faithfully at 3 in the morning for years without ever once being thanked for it. So simply thank it, not out loud, just that part of you that never stopped watching. It got you through something. It's still on shift because nobody ever told it that the shift ended. It doesn't need to be argued with. It doesn't need to be fixed. It just needs to know that nothing is on fire right now. Breathe out one more time, all the way out. We're not fixing sleep. We're going off duty. Those are different. And only one of them can be asked for. You can't order yourself to sleep. You've tried. But you can go off duty. That one, you're allowed to just decide. So, not asleep, just off duty. Somebody else has the watch. And that's yours now. The breath all the way out. And that one line. It works in a parking lot. It works at 3 in the morning. It doesn't need me. It doesn't need a session. And it doesn't need the room to be quiet. So take it with you. Okay. And we're back. How did that feel? I hope that was relaxing for you. And I know it isn't like the past previous episodes where we had kind of like a full relaxation mode. This one's just kind of like a quick one to kind of help reset. And that's the end of the episode. If you take one that thing that started this and the thing that keeps going are not the same. And I want you to understand that about this specific episode. And the second thing is the one that you can work on. So the show notes have every study I mentioned, including the 13 minutes and the review that says evidence is thin. Go and check them out. And I'd rather you did. And as per usual, please support me. If you need to, send this to someone that really needs to hear it, by all means, share it. On site calmopshypnosis.com. You can find my section in the podcast along with the ability to book a 20-minute session. Again, not anything that, is going to force you to commit to a session. I can just simply tell you, whether we can help you out and then book a session from there. Again, this is the real work here. And if anything else, and you're not ready for a session, by all means, continue listening, supporting, learning as we grow together in changing some of our habits and trying to reframe our mindset regarding the things that we can and cannot change. So, as per usual, until next week, you're not alone, not in this. Be good to yourself. And until next time.